Ladies and gentlemen, fear is one of the oldest enemies of mankind. It doesn't knock politely, it breaks in, unannounced, unwanted, and unrelenting. It creeps into the hearts of the strong and the weak, the educated and the uneducated, the rich and the poor. But today, I want to tell you that fear does not have to win. There is a secret to killing fear, and that secret lies not in denial, not in escape, but in truth. Fear, at its core, is a reaction to uncertainty. It is the natural response of the human mind and body to situations where the outcome is unknown, where control is limited, and where danger, real or imagined, feels close. From childhood, we learn to fear what we do not understand. A shadow in the dark, a loud noise, a sudden change. All of these stir fear, not necessarily because they are harmful, but because we are unsure of what they mean. As we grow, those childhood fears evolve. The shadow becomes the fear of the future. The loud noise becomes the fear of conflict. The unknown becomes the fear of failure, rejection, loss, and death. But at every stage of life, the root remains the same: uncertainty. Uncertainty, though, is not always the enemy. In fact, life is filled with it. We cannot predict every event, we cannot guarantee every result, and we cannot avoid every challenge. If uncertainty were a reason to live in fear, then fear would rule every day of our lives. But here is the truth. While we cannot always eliminate uncertainty, we can eliminate the power it has over us. And we do that through knowledge, faith, and purpose. Knowledge is one of the most powerful weapons against fear. When we understand something, it no longer controls us. Think of how many people fear things like public speaking, financial instability, or making big decisions. In most cases, their fear is not based on actual danger, but on what might go wrong. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I make the wrong choice? These questions come from a lack of understanding, not just of the situation, but of themselves. The more we learn, the more we prepare, the more we understand the risks and the possible outcomes, the smaller fear becomes. It doesn't disappear, but it no longer dictates our actions. But knowledge alone is not enough. There are moments in life when even the most educated, the most well-prepared person feels afraid. That's because some fears go deeper than intellect. They reach the soul. This is where faith comes in. Faith is not the absence of reason, but the presence of trust. It is choosing to believe that even in the unknown, even when we do not have all the answers, we are not alone. Faith gives us the courage to step forward even when we cannot see the whole path. It reminds us that there is something or someone greater than our fear. Faith is also what helps us move forward when our knowledge reaches its limit. Because the truth is, there will always be things we don't know. There will always be storms we didn't predict and valleys we didn't plan for. In those times, fear will try to rise again. But faith says, even here I am held. Even now I am not forsaken. And then there is purpose. Purpose gives meaning to struggle. It transforms fear from something that paralyzes into something that motivates. When you know why you're doing something, when you are connected to a cause, a mission, a responsibility, you find strength that fear cannot touch. Purpose makes the pain worth it. It turns a fearful heart into a determined one. Think of the firefighter who runs into the flames, the teacher who enters a classroom full of challenges, the parent who sacrifices day after day. They do not act without fear, but they act beyond it. Why? Because they are driven by something deeper. They are not living for comfort or safety. They are living for purpose. When knowledge, faith, and purpose come together, they form a kind of inner armor. Uncertainty may still knock at the door, but it no longer breaks in. You can acknowledge your fear without surrendering to it. You can feel its presence without letting it rule your mind. That is the secret to killing fear. Not pretending it doesn't exist, but stripping it of its power. The truth is, fear will always try to find a place in our lives. It is persistent, it is subtle, and it knows how to disguise itself. But so long as we are anchored in truth, we are stronger than it. Every time we choose understanding over panic, trust over anxiety, and purpose over paralysis, we drive a nail into fear's coffin. We do not defeat fear in one dramatic moment. We defeat it day by day, choice by choice, thought by thought. And the more we grow in knowledge, the more we cultivate faith, and the more we commit to our purpose, the less room fear has to live in us. So the next time fear begins to whisper, when uncertainty creeps in, remember this: you are not helpless, you are not alone, and you are not without defense. The light of knowledge, the strength of faith, and the power of purpose are more than enough to silence even the loudest fear. Fear may rise, but it does not have to reign. The antidote to fear is not just courage, it is understanding who you are, why you are here, and who is ultimately in control. Fear, in its deepest form, is not merely an emotion. It is a spiritual crisis. It often arises when we feel out of control, when the foundations we've built our lives upon start to tremble. It doesn't matter how educated, how wealthy, or how socially connected a person is, when they lack a clear understanding of their identity, their purpose, and the greater force behind life, they become vulnerable to fear in its most paralyzing form. Many people try to battle fear by simply willing themselves to be brave. They say, "Be strong," or "Don't be afraid." But these words, though well-meaning, are often powerless without deeper substance behind them. Real courage isn't just a momentary rush of adrenaline. It is the natural outflow of confidence rooted in understanding. So let's begin by asking the first critical question: who are you? We live in an age of confusion where identity has become one of the most debated subjects. People try to define themselves by their careers, their appearance, their possessions, or the opinions of others. But all of these are fragile foundations. When the job is lost, the beauty fades, the money runs out, or the praise turns to criticism, the sense of self begins to crumble and fear rushes in. To truly defeat fear, one must know who they are at the core, unchanging, eternal, and deeply valuable, not because of what they've done, but because of who they were created to be. A person who understands that they are not a cosmic accident, but a deliberate creation begins to walk with a quiet confidence. Fear cannot grip the heart of someone who knows they are not alone, not random, and not without purpose. Then we come to the second question: why are you here? Purpose is the compass that gives direction in the storms of life. A person without purpose will be tossed about by every fear, every hardship, and every unexpected turn. But the one who knows their purpose is like a ship with a set course. They may still face waves and winds, but they are not lost. Fear thrives in confusion, but it withers in the presence of direction. Purpose brings clarity, and clarity drives out fear. A person who understands their purpose knows that life is not just about survival, it is about impact. When fear whispers, "This is the end," purpose responds, "No, this is just another step." When fear says, "You can't handle this," purpose answers, "This challenge was meant to grow me." Purpose turns obstacles into opportunities and setbacks into setups. When you know why you're here, you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can I learn and how can I grow?" But these two, identity and purpose, are incomplete without the third element, understanding who is ultimately in control. This is the cornerstone of fearlessness. As long as we believe that we are the only ones responsible for holding everything together, we will live in constant anxiety. Human beings are not built to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. There are too many variables, too many unknowns, too many things beyond our control, and fear feeds on all of them. But when a person comes to the realization that there is a higher power, a divine presence who oversees all things with wisdom, love, and justice, fear begins to lose its grip. It is not weakness to surrender control. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that while we do our part, we are not alone in this journey. There is peace in knowing that even when we fall, there is a hand ready to lift us. Even when we are confused, there is guidance available. Even when we are afraid, there is comfort waiting. That kind of trust doesn't eliminate fear overnight, but it does begin to disarm it. The truth is, fear cannot survive in a heart that is rooted in identity, driven by purpose, and anchored in divine trust. These three elements form a shield around the soul. They allow a person to walk into uncertainty with steady feet, to face loss with hope, and to endure suffering with patience. They allow us to say, even in the face of our greatest fears, I may not know what tomorrow holds, but I know who I am, I know why I'm here, and I know who holds tomorrow. In the end, fear is not defeated by noise or willpower. It is defeated by truth. And the truth is, you are not alone. Your life is not an accident, and you were made for more than fear. When these truths settle into your heart, fear may knock at the door, but it will no longer find a place to stay. And so, my friends, the battle against fear is not fought on the surface. It is fought deep within the heart and mind. It is not about pretending to be brave or putting on a mask of strength. It is about being grounded in truth. It is about knowing who you are, why you are here, and trusting the one who sees what you cannot. When that understanding takes root, fear begins to lose its voice. Its threats become hollow. Its shadows lose their shape. Because when you are secure in identity, when you are fueled by purpose, and when your trust rests in something greater than yourself, fear no longer has the final word. So walk forward, not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of truth. Let your steps be steady, not because the road is easy, but because your foundation is sure. And may you discover not just the secret to killing fear, but the freedom of truly living without it. Thank you.